Awesome. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. So nice to have you this morning. Like Mr. Jake said, my name is Meredith, and my partner, who I see on the fourth row down, is Adam. So you guys can see Adam down there. And we are from an organization called Blue Scholars Initiative. And I think that Mr. Jake explained a little bit about what we do. Normally, we would be taking you guys out on a boat right now. It's a beautiful day, actually, today out in Miami. And we would normally be heading out on a boat and learning all about the different wildlife and the ecosystems. We'll get into that word a little bit later. Of Biscayne Bay. We're a nonprofit organization. So we raise money to take people like you guys out on the water for free. And we work primarily with fourth and fifth and sixth graders, sometimes third graders. So you guys are right in our group. And this was just an example of one of the boats that we go out on. You can see some students that we have on board there. And we're heading out on Biscayne Bay. It's a really flat, beautiful day. And when we go out on the bay, we study all about the marine ecology. So what is the nature that's in and around Biscayne Bay? And then we also study about, here you can see me looking over the boat with some students, and we're looking at the seagrasses in the water there, the mangroves and the animals that live in the seagrasses. And then we also work on teaching students all about the science of the bay. So what makes the water salty, how much turbidity, or what's the visibility in the water? Is the water clear? Is it cloudy? What's the temperature of the water? And we're studying all about that. So we have some science elements in it. And then now we're going to zoom in on Biscayne Bay. So for those of you that know, I can't really see all of you now, but can somebody just unmute themselves and tell me what you're seeing on the screen right now?
The Earth.
The Earth, planet Earth. That's our blue planet. It's called the blue planet. Anybody want to take a guess why it's called the blue planet?
Because it's mostly water.
It's mostly water, exactly. It's more than 70% water. So you could see as you zoom into Biscayne Bay that Biscayne Bay is on the east side of our state. Okay. And as it zooms around, you can see that Biscayne Bay is really big. It's 35 miles from top to bottom, from north to south, and across, it's 8 miles across. So it's a pretty big body of water. Who knows what an estuary is?
It's like a mouth of a large river.
Exactly. So it's a partially enclosed, which means it's not closed on all sides. That would be a lake. It's a partially enclosed body of water that's brackish. We're going to get to that word in a second. And one or more rivers are streaming into that. Now, looking at our state, because there's our state there on the screen, can you tell me where the rivers would come from? So let me just tell you the river that I'm talking about. Have you guys ever heard of the Everglades? Raise your hand if you've heard of the Everglades. Yeah, some of you have heard of the Everglades. Good. What kind of water is in the Everglades? Is it fresh water or salt water? Fresh water, exactly. So fresh water is coming into Biscayne Bay from the Everglades, and then salt water is coming from what ocean? What ocean is on the east side, the right side of our state?
Atlantic Ocean.
The Atlantic Ocean. So if you have, can you guys see my cursor there, my little black cursor? Hopefully you could see it. If not, just, you know where the Everglades is. It's on land, right? It's on the southern part of our state. And then the ocean is way out over to the east side, to the right side. So that's what makes salt water from the ocean and fresh water from the Everglades. That's what makes Biscayne Bay brackish. Alrighty, so now you know estuary is one word. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you have a pencil and paper in front of you, but you might want to grab one so you could take down some notes of some words that we talk about. So Biscayne Bay, like I said, is on the east side. You could see it right there. A bay is a partially enclosed body of water. So it's open to the ocean on the right side, and it's closed to the land on the left side. Alrighty. Now we are going to head out onto Biscayne Bay right now, and Mr. Adam is going to take over for a second, and then we're going to get started.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Meredith. And good morning, everyone. So yeah, I wanted to kind of get you all set as far as your visualization, your frame of mind for our learning experience today, our field trip out on Biscayne Bay. Obviously, we are doing this virtually. So it's going to take a little extra effort on your part, and to kind of get us in that mindset, I'd like to take you all through a little sort of sensory learning experience just to kick off before we start our video and our discussion and about Biscayne Bay. But I know that a couple of you had your hands up when Meredith asked if you've been to Biscayne Bay or if you're familiar with it. But even if you haven't been to Biscayne Bay in particular, maybe some of you have been out to Miami Beach or some other body of water in our beautiful blue planet. So if I could ask everybody to sit up tall in your chair. If you've got a back behind your chair that you're leaning against, pull your back off that so that you're sit up nice and tall. Take a big, deep inhale, if you would. So everybody let that out. All right, so we're trying to relax ourselves. We're trying to open our bodies up. So now what I'd like you to do is close your eyes, because if our eyes are closed, we have a much better sort of sensory experience, right? Our senses are heightened with our eyes closed because we're not distracted. So with your eyes closed, and again, we're taking ourselves out through our visualization out onto Biscayne Bay. So first sense is what we see, okay? So what I'd like to is kind of describe a nature experience for you that you can sort of imagine yourself in. And again, hopefully you've been to Biscayne Bay before, but when we come up to the edge of the water, what we see, of course, is a lot of blue water, right? All around. And maybe we're standing on the sand and we've got palm trees nearby. So we see all this natural beauty, and maybe pelicans flying out and seagulls out on the water. So our first sense is what we see, all right? And we take that in. Now, the next thing is what we smell, okay? So when you're out by the water, maybe you smell the salt air, right? Blowing through, maybe it's low tide. And so you smell some of the decomposing organic matter there on the shoreline. So maybe it stinks a little bit. And then of course, your sense of touch, right? What you feel. Now, if the wind is blowing, you feel that wind blowing against you, right? If you are barefoot, maybe you feel the sand beneath your feet. And if you're right in on the edge of the water, you can feel that cool water against your feet, and maybe even you're touching some of the leaves of the mangroves that are all around. So we've seen something, we've smelled something, we've felt something, and now the next sense is what we hear. So if the wind is blowing, maybe you hear the palm fronds rustling about all around you. Maybe you hear the waves kind of lapping against the shoreline, right? So this is our sense of hearing. And then finally, this one is a little bit tougher. This is our sense of taste. If the air is salty, as we breathe that in, we might actually taste some of that salt air. If it's been raining, sometimes you can actually taste the rain in the air. And of course, if you dive into the water, maybe you get a little taste of the salt water. All right, so what we want to try and do is store this experience, right? All these different senses of what Biscayne Bay might look like, might smell like, might feel like, might sound like, and might taste like. And then as you would, gently open your eyes. Those of you that actually played along and kept your eyes closed, if we're all set, we're going to jump into our Biscayne Bay ecosystem video. And it's actually divided into 3 sections, because we're talking about 3 main habitats. And we'll stop in between each of the 3 sections and talk to you a little bit. And then we'll get going here. So I'm going to share my screen. So everybody seeing our logo? Great. Okay, here we go. And as Meredith mentioned, if you do hear words or different facts about the ecosystems, go ahead and write those down, because again, our discussion is going to kind of quiz you in a sense, or we're going to talk about some of the things in the video. Okay, so take note. From the sandy beaches on Key Biscayne to the tree-lined coast of Biscayne Bay, South Florida's waters contain many habitats. In the Atlantic Ocean, habitats are specific to depth and/or bottom type. In Biscayne Bay, there are rocky and sandy shores. There are areas with dense coverage of seagrass, mangrove forests, and open ocean habitats. Let's take a look at these three very special ecosystems that support the incredibly diverse wildlife both above and below the surface.
Now let's dive under the water to check out the seagrass ecosystem. Welcome to the nursery.
These flowering plants evolved from land plants that migrated back into the ocean 75 to 100 million years ago. They are the nursery grounds for many species of fish, crustaceans, and shellfish. This is where they start their life. Just think back to when you were much younger and how your family and home provided you protection while you were growing. This is exactly what happens in the seagrass zone. One famous resident is the seahorse. Generally small in size, these fish swim upright and use their tails to anchor onto the seagrass blades, which provide great camouflage from predators. Seagrasses also provide nutrient for manatees, who are herbivores. These gentle giants weigh between 1,000 and 3,000 pounds and can consume approximately 15% of their body weight in seagrass every day. That's more than 150 pounds of vegetation. Seagrasses help stabilize the sea bottom with their incredible root structures called rhizomes. This is important when we get tropical storms and hurricanes approaching our coastline. And one of the biggest things seagrasses help with is to maintain water clarity by trapping fine sediments and particles.
Like all plants, seagrasses need sunlight to survive. And that's why they thrive here in Biscayne Bay, because the water is so shallow, the sunlight can penetrate through.
So just a brief discussion in between each section. Anybody remember or know of any animals that they just learned about that are living in the seagrass?
The seahorses and the manatees.
Very good. Yes, that's two of them. One of the most iconic species in the bay is the manatee. Yes.
The stingray.
The stingray. Very good.
All right, mine's more tricky. So you saw the seahorses, right? You saw that seahorse in that picture. What did you notice was really interesting about that seahorse for those of you that were really paying attention?
It looked kind of green.
It did look green. It did look green.
It looked green so it could camouflage from its predators.
Correct.
It was hiding in grass, so that's why its skin was green, because it was camouflaging in the grass.
Yep, it was camouflaging in the grass, and it had a very big belly. Why do you think that belly was so big?
He or she was probably pregnant.
He or she was probably pregnant. Why do you say he or she?
Because the mom transfers the egg to the dad.
Correct. And that's something super special about the seahorse that lives in the seagrasses, is that the male seahorse carries the eggs, not the female. The male seahorses carry the eggs. So tonight when you're at dinner or you're hanging out with some friends later, if you really want to blow their mind, like the emoji, like, you tell them that the male seahorse is the one that carries the eggs. Okay, excellent. We're ready to move on, Mr. Adam.
Okay.
These mangrove forests are the second stop that juvenile fish make on their way out to sea. You can see how their tangled roots provide a perfect habitat to get them camouflaged from larger predators.
Mangroves are amazing trees. These tropical trees thrive in conditions most timber would not tolerate. They grow on the coast in salt or brackish water and are always wet or dry with the ebb and flow of the tides. A complex salt filtration system and special types of roots help them cope with saltwater immersion and wave action. They are adapted to the low oxygen conditions of the waterlogged muddy shorelines. Here in South Florida, we have three different types of mangroves. Red mangroves were once found all along the South Florida shoreline. They thrive on muddy coastlines where their aerial roots spread outward toward the sea in water as deep as 3 feet. They are nicknamed the walking man mangrove because the tree looks like it is walking on water. Their roots grow in tangles, which helps to prevent soil erosion.
So red mangrove seeds are known as propagules, and if you look at the seed, you can see that it's skinnier on the top, fatter on the bottom. It kind of resembles a green bean or a cigar. So when it floats along in the water, it becomes a little bit waterlogged, and that forces it to prop up like this in a vertical position, and it'll attach onto some type of substrate or bottom part, and it'll start to grow.
Black mangroves live in mostly salty, silty soils found along the shoreline. They like higher and drier soils. These mangroves are characterized by their unique roots, called pneumatophores, that actually are reversed. They're not sticking down into the soil, but in fact sticking up like a snorkel. So imagine, just like when you're out in the water with a snorkel breathing, as the tide comes in, inundates the land where the tree is, these allow the tree to be able to breathe. White mangroves are found even further inland than red and black mangroves.
An easy way to identify this special tree is by looking at its leaf. So if you take a leaf off a tree, you could see that it's got a rounded top with a notch in the top, and then at the base of the leaf there are two little nodules called nectarines. Scientists used to think that this is where the mangrove excreted its salt, but it's actually where it excretes sugar for animals to consume.
All mangroves have trouble with cold weather, and that is why living close to the water helps them, because the ocean helps moderate the temperature.
So taking a look at this unique tree, can you think about ways that it's important to us and the environment? Check out their super thick roots, a great way to clean the water and prevent erosion from land. And look at the tangled web that they make. It's perfect shelter for birds to live and nest in them, and fish to camouflage themselves below the water.
I'm sure a bird like the blue heron, or maybe a juvenile sergeant majorfish, loves living in this tangled web, as it gives great shelter and lots of camouflage above and below the water. Many crabs, shrimp, and fish spend the early stages of life within the safety of the mangrove roots before making their way out into the open ocean as adults. Wow, the water is so warm today. Did you know that mangroves actually take in 10 times more carbon out of the atmosphere than other trees on land, really helping to counter the effects of global warming? Back with you again for a couple quick questions. So the first one, can anybody name the 3 types of mangroves? What are the 3 types of mangroves that we just discussed in the video?
The red, I only know 2.
Okay, what are those 2?
The red mangrove and the black one.
Very good. The red mangrove and the black mangrove. Does anybody know what the third other mangrove is? White mangroves are the third. Excellent.
Awesome. Okay. Let's see. This one's trickier. Which mangrove has the snorkel-like roots that come up from the ground?
I'm gonna guess with red.
Not the red. The red ones have roots that come down into the water like this. They call it the walking man mangrove because it looks like it's walking its roots out on the water. Which one has roots that go up?
Was it the black one?
The black mangrove. And those roots are called pneumatophores. Starts with a P, Pneumatophore. That's a long word, pneumatophore. And those are the special roots that come up from the ground. Nice.
All right. Good job, everyone. And we got our final section here on coral reefs. One of the ecosystems that makes South Florida most famous is our majestic coral reef. Did you know that corals are actual living species? Yep, coral organisms called polyps can live on their own, but are primarily associated with the spectacularly diverse limestone communities or reefs they construct. They are tiny, soft-bodied organisms related to sea anemones and jellyfish. Their base is a hard, protective limestone skeleton called a calicle, which forms the structure of coral reefs. Reefs begin when a polyp attaches itself to a rock on the seafloor, then divides or buds into thousands of clones. The polyp calicles connect to one another, creating a colony that acts as a single organism. As colonies grow over hundreds and thousands of years, they join with other colonies and become reefs. Some of the coral reefs on the planet today began growing over 50 million years ago. So if the actual polyps are clear, where does the coral get its color from? It's actually a very unique relationship that they have with an algae called zooxanthellae. Try to say that 3 times fast with a mouthful of peanut butter. The zooxanthellae are what give the reef the wild colors that we know and love. But unfortunately, when stressed by such things as temperature change or pollution, corals will evict this resident algae, causing coral bleaching that can kill the colony if the stress is not stopped. Coral reefs teem with life, covering less than 1% of the ocean floor, but supporting about 25% of all marine creatures. Scientists estimate that human factors, such as pollution, global warming, and sedimentation, are threatening large swaths of reefs around the world. Look at all of the diversity right here in our own backyard. It's truly amazing that we have the opportunity to live in such a unique environment, making it so important for all of us to be aware of how we impact the natural world around us. All right, so that is our third and final section. So now we get to have some fun.
When we came to Breakthrough Miami and we met Mr. Jake and the other site directors, they told us about this game called Kahoot. Do you guys know what Kahoots are?
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
I think
they're
you
very
guys,
competitive.
okay, so you guys are wizards at Kahoot. I'm a little bit of a novice at it, but I made a Kahoot for today. So there is your game pin. Do you see your game pin? 858-5812. Alrighty, so everybody log in. Waiting. If anybody has any questions, when we finish the Kahoot or before we start the Kahoot, you are welcome to ask right now. If you have any questions about the stuff that we learned about in the last 3 sections, because the Kahoot's going to cover everything too. But if you have any questions or curiosities or what have you, then either put it in the chat or raise your hand and ask us. Here we go, Biscayne Bay ecosystems.
All right, so name an animal that lives in the seagrass. Options are stingray, great white shark, cormorant, and alligator. Nicely done. Excellent.
Right, wow. I think they're, all right. Silly dragon. All right, next one. How do animals benefit from the seagrass? How do animals benefit from the seagrass? Is it a place where they go on vacation? Do they get money from the seagrasses? Are they there because sharks don't go in the seagrasses, or do they get protection? Nice job. Excellent. Yes, they get protection from the seagrasses because we actually do have sharks in the seagrass. Nurse sharks and bonnethead sharks live in the seagrasses. So it's not like the sharks don't go there.
All right, and number 3. How much seagrass can a manatee consume in a day? So these are very big animals. Is it 50% of their body weight? Is it 150 pounds? How about 3,000 pounds?
I picked the wrong answer by mistake.
Or do they only eat meat? Nice.
I thought it was red, but I picked orange by mistake.
No worries. No worries. You'll pay more close attention next time. Not a big deal. All right. Wow. Silly dragon still on top. Okay. Let's see. Number 4. Which one is a type of mangrove? Look at that picture. A type of mangrove found around Biscayne Bay. Look at that picture. We just talked about it. The roots that go down. It looks like it's walking out on water. Which one is that? Okay, so it's the red mangrove. The red mangrove is the one that it looks like it's walking out on water, and it's got the roots that go down into the water. Oh, elated zebra, you're moving into second place.
All right, our 5th question here. What are the seeds of a mangrove called? Are they those green thingies? That's a good name. Are they propagules? Are they pollinators? Or are they just simply mangrove seeds? What are the seeds of a mangrove called? Ooh, it's split all across. It's a tough one.
They're called propagules. So those are like those cigar things that you saw me in the video. I said they're like cigar things and they float along in the water and all they do is go vertical and they attach onto the bottom part and they start to grow. It's that simple. That's how mangroves replicate. All right, number 6. Which mangrove does this leaf belong to? Look at that leaf. It's round on the top. It's got a notch in it. And it's got those 2 little nectaries, those 2 little nodules underneath. Which one? Red, black, white, or green? Red, black, white, or green? There's no green mangrove. There's only red, black, and white mangroves here on Biscayne Bay. So it's the white mangrove, the white mangrove.
But it doesn't even say mango. It says green buttwood.
Buttonwood.
Totally different tree.
Yeah.
But onwood.
Buttonwood. Exactly.
All righty. Oh, green squid jumped into second place. Okay.
All right. This is a true or false. So is it true that the order of the mangroves from closest to the water to upland is red, black, and white? Or is that a false statement? Again, is it true that the order of mangroves from closest to the water to upland is red, black, and then white? Nicely done.
Excellent. Very nice. That was a hard one. Okay, number 8. Where does coral get all that color from? Does it get it from the sun? Does it get it from ocean currents, from zooxanthellae, or from warm water? Where does the color come from in the coral? Because remember, it always starts off with clear, then it gets color in it. The zooxanthellae. The zooxanthellae is the algae that lives in the coral, and the algae is what gives the coral the vibrant color. Nice. Oh, green squid has taken the lead.
I was in second. Now I'm in fourth. How does that
We've
happen?
got 2 more questions. Number 9. What is the name of the single coral organism that all reefs start with? And again, here's a picture of kind of that clear looking single-celled organism. Is it limestone? Is it crustacean? Again, what is the name? Is it zinc or polyp? Very good. Yes, so it's a polyp. That is the name of the single coral organism.
Oh, Silly Dragon's back in the lead. All right, this is the final question. Let's see. What is one of the things threatening coral reefs today? Is it dark skies from storms, too many fish in the ocean, pollution, or not enough space in the ocean? What is threatening coral reefs today?
I got a question. When this is not enough space in the ocean, I mean, not enough space for all the animals?
Not enough space for the coral reefs. I said, what is one thing threatening the coral reefs?
I got the answer correct, but like, I don't understand the last answer because the ocean is the biggest thing in the world.
Exactly. So that's why it was just a silly option to choose. If there's 71% of the earth is covered in ocean, there's a lot of space. So that should not be something that's threatening the coral reefs. But pollution is something that's one of the choices that's threatening the coral reefs.
And everybody got that one right. So that's great.
Nice job. All right, let me go next. Let's see. Jolly Badger got third. Green Squid, nice work. Silly Dragon, nice job, Silly Dragon. Excellent. So now I have a question for you. Did anybody learn something today that they did not know before? Raise your hand if you learned something today that you did not know before. Wow, only 2 of you learned something new. 3, okay. Sounds good, kind of, sorta. All right, does anybody have a question for Adam or I about something that we learned today, or something that maybe you just want to know about Biscayne Bay or about the ocean, or you could put it in the chat because we have another couple of minutes. And I would love to hear if you have any questions at all, or something new that you learned today that you didn't know before that you want to say out loud or put in the chat. Anyone?
I have a question.
Sure.
If you step on the upper roots of the mango tree, does it like affect the root, or does it not?
You're talking about the black mangrove, the new metaphors, the roots that come up from the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're, of course, that's something that ends up happening because those roots grow up from the ground, but a mangrove shoots off a ton of roots that come up from the ground like that. So yes, it's not the best thing if you trample on the roots that come up from the ground. But it's not going to kill the tree completely. But that's a very good question, because oftentimes people are not even aware of what those roots are, and they're kind of walking at low tide and the water has drained away and the roots are exposed and they end up trampling them. But it would be the same as if a root got like a scratch or something like that on a tree that's outside. That would be the same. But if you were to trample on all of the roots and completely obliterate them, the tree would not survive. Good question. Great question. Really deductive thinking. Who's got another question or anything new that they learned that they want to share, or maybe an experience that they had on the water that was interesting, or anything like that? Because we're going to be together in a couple of weeks. We're going to go over all about the different lives or animals that live in the bay and in the ocean. And we're going to have another time together. So if you guys have any other questions, I'm happy to hear, or comments. Super happy to hear.
I will say my comment is I really loved the video. Number one, I think that the live interaction, even though we're not live and interacting, was amazing. And you know, as always, we appreciate everything that you all have done and all the hard work that goes into this. This is definitely scholars. Also, just know that this amazing partnership hopefully is going to be even better once this world that we're living in goes back to a little bit more normal of a state. So if there aren't any other questions, I would just say, you know, as always, thank you for being here. We appreciate you, and we know there's a lot of things that you could be doing with your Saturday, and we're happy that you're spending it with us. So,
well, thank you guys.
Yes, thank you very much. We enjoyed it, and we look forward to joining you again on our next visit with you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everybody.